And Thasin, I am so glad to have you. Thasin is the communications person at the Islamic Center in East Lansing, and there is so much to talk about in relation to what's been happening in the news recently. And I think one of the places I would like to start our conversation is what is happening to the community, and does the community feel that they are facing additional pressures? As we've seen, there's sort of been ebb and flow over the years in terms of the discrimination against your community in this society, and is there a level of fear that you have to worry now that people are again concerned about the Muslim community?
First of all, thank you for having me here, Bonnie and Bill. And April, it was nice listening to your story, although it's an unfortunate story, but it's all for the better that you're making a difference in people's lives going forward. Coming back to your question, the community is in a disbelief in terms of what is happening worldwide. In the beginning, the fear was not felt locally, but when the killing happened in Chapel Hill in North Carolina, that's when it sort of struck home, because the three kids who were killed there, they were honor students. They were perfect American Muslim kids that any parent could ask for. They were not really good at school, but they were building their careers, and they were into volunteering, doing a lot of service work, both locally and nationally, and even going abroad to do service work. So for them to be falling victim to somebody who disliked religion and people who looked different was really, the message got home to many of us.
It's really frightening.
Yeah.
It's truly frightening. I mean, it took place against the backdrop of the Charlie Hebdo situation in Paris, and now we're seeing that there are these copycat kinds of other situations. It does not appear to be any kind of organized group of violence against your community, right? But
no,
I mean,
not at all. In fact, this person did not even belong to any religion. He was a self-proclaimed atheist.
Right.
So it just goes to show that terrorism or any forms of violence have no religion. This man is a living proof of it.
One of the challenges that your community faces is that you're always held accountable for the behavior of everyone else who has any kind of tangential relationship to your community. I mean, the people in Paris. I mean, all of a sudden it is that your community has to. It seems I'm hearing the news, beating the drum that says you didn't come out enough. You're not saying enough how you condemn all of this. What more are you expected to do?
Honestly, we don't know where to speak and how loudly to speak. I mean, all our representative organizations have been issuing statements. There were a group of scholars from all around the world, 120 to be precise, put out a joint statement directly addressing Baghdadi, the self-proclaimed caliph of the ISIS, saying that every single thing that he's doing is against the teachings of Islam.
Yeah.
But this message doesn't get heard, unfortunately, and every time you turn on the news channels, there are analysts asking and saying aloud that we are not condemning violence, which we do all the time.
One news channel in particular said that too.
I really wish I didn't have to mention that.
But that's a real problem because, as a journalist, I even have difficulty thinking of it as a news channel because it really is a propaganda channel for a particular point of view.
Yeah.
And it does seem to portray the community as the other. And I think I'm very concerned that the people in Homeland Security are now concerned about what's happening at the Mall of America. And the assumption is made that because they have a Somali community that is fairly large, about 40,000 people in Minneapolis. I've interviewed some of the people from the police department there about the community policing outreach to that community. They've always felt it's been quite successful and that they have a very good relationship with the Somali community. But now it seems as there's this heightened fear that we have to worry that that community will go to the Mall of America and lone wolves will commit these kinds of actions. And it just seems to be, I don't know how you combat that kind of mindset.
I think community policing, as you said, is a perfect solution to something like this. You had Vice President Joe Biden say a couple of days ago how many cab drivers of Somali heritage that he knew back in Maryland when he used to take the rides. So I guess people should stop relating between what happens overseas and the lives of local Muslim Americans out here. People chose to come to America to make better lives. And for the most part, Muslim Americans who came about a decade ago or even prior to that came in pursuit of better economic opportunities. And most of them are well-to-do, well-educated, going about their lives, trying to be responsible citizens, contributing citizens. And even the refugee populations who are coming from war-ravaged countries, they have basically escaped death and destruction in their homelands, and that's why they've come here to get better and safer lives. So there should be lesser to fear from those people, and try and accommodate them and make them feel part of the fabric, as opposed to calling every one of them suspect. Just
Tremendous number of news stories that use the word Muslim where it doesn't need to be used.
That's another question. It's about the language, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't, when we had, there were somewhat lone wolves, but there were some groups that were blowing up domestic terrorists. We didn't call them Christian terrorists.
Well, that's part of the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the Christian
what-
Identity Church was the only one that was identified by its religion just because it was in the name,
Right.
and they were involved in some of those activities. But many of these other groups, I mean, we were talking earlier that there's the history of the KKK, which was definitely a Christian-based organization. They committed horrible acts of terror against the black community in the South during the Jim Crow era. We now found out 5,000 more lynchings than we had known before, 700 more incidents. 5,000 lynchings in the South. I mean, they were not held to account as a religious entity in the same way. I mean, I can found a religion today, a whole new sect, and announce that I'm going to do something special as a result of, finding, gold plates somewhere that give me special revelations. That's the way religion works. Anybody can proclaim that they're part of a religion.
Yeah, that's the sad part. I mean, what does ISIS do? They kill, maim, murder, burn, behead, put people in cages, torture them.
Unbelievable.
And I can't think of any religion, forget Islam, no
Right.
religion on earth is going to sanction any of these acts.
Then nobody wants to claim them. No, I mean, that's absolutely right. I mean, we look back at the Inquisition. I mean, and part of the challenge was that when the president has tried to change the rhetoric, and I see the importance, I agree, in trying to sort of dial down the rhetoric. I think that's part of the challenge. And
He's criticized.
He's been very careful for not wanting to say Islamic terrorism, and he's being soundly criticized for it. But in reality, he's saying, you can't let what amounts to a death cult hijack an entire religion of 1 billion people. That's just simply
That's absolutely
unacceptable.
the case here,
Yeah.
and that's what he's trying to change the course. I mean, the Bush's doctrine has been, over the years, they've kept repeating Islamic terrorism, Muslim extremists, and stuff like that. And current administration is trying to change that rhetoric. And the Republican Party, unfortunately, wants to use this again as a political weapon and start attacking him.
I am concerned, too, about the number of refugees. The death toll in Syria is becoming astronomical. We're seeing, the Middle East is really in refugee. Libya is now a failed state. We're seeing failed state after failed state. Should the United States be doing more to absorb people who need a safe haven? Is there more we should be doing about bringing members of the community here?
As far as I know, Sweden is one of the countries in Europe that has accommodated many refugees. Not many other countries have stepped forward,
No.
other than the bordering countries like Turkey and Jordan. I think not just the United States, but all the countries around the world should play a role in absorbing these refugees, try and minimize the suffering. I mean, people are living in very horrible conditions out there, and the threat for their lives, it's like on a day-to-day basis they're going about their lives.
I was pleased to see at the White House conference that was held last week on the root causes of terrorism, which was what they were talking about. They were looking at it more broadly. They were looking at domestic terrorism in the United States and what are the conditions that foster this. We're seeing those 3 young girls from Europe now that are headed to Syria, and their parents are just terrified at the thought that these young girls have been recruited. We don't have all the answers for how you take impressionable teenagers who have access to the internet. I mean, you know what it was like to be a teenager. Sometimes these things seem exciting and they seem dynamic. I mean, I know from my own upbringing that, I carried a knife to school in the 4th grade. It was a dangerous neighborhood, but I don't know that it was that dangerous that I really had to carry a knife every day. But it was exciting to think that I had to carry a knife, right? I mean, there is an allure to violence. So I
Yeah,
think we have
this-
to be very careful about that.
And this is kind of baffling to us as communities. What is bringing this appeal to youngsters like
Yeah.
these 3 young girls in Britain? I mean, ISIS reportedly pumps out 90,000 messages on social media on a daily basis. This is a CNN report.
90,000.
90,000, yeah. So to begin with, why are we letting that happen? Why are we allowing a recruitment tool to flourish like this? I think there are areas where the governments in different countries can play a role in curbing these avenues so that the messages don't get across to the youth.
One of the quieter programs that I don't think has received much attention that I just learned about today was that the White House does have an initiative, and Homeland Security does have people who are out on Twitter, and where kids are being engaged in these conversations, they will go in and say, here's the other side. This is how they treat women when you get there. You know, they may tell you you're going to be a warrior and it's going to be exciting and you're going to be empowered. What you will end up is very likely a sex slave to somebody and sold to somebody else. There is sex trafficking going on. And so we need that counter argument. We need to be in, if they're putting out 90,000 messages a day, we need to have people on our side talking to these young kids before they're inveigled into these kinds of situations.
Well, you know, you mentioned that the glamour of violence, and we don't have to go back too, well, we have to go back 50 years now, but the Weathermen, the violent
Right,
Weathermen,
yeah.
they had some pretty substantial bombing plans. They were pretty clumsy, but it could have come off. The century before that, pirates. We're seeing them as a glamorous, and we're kind of reinvented them again. But they were evil people.
Right.
They didn't do anything good for anybody.
And that's where the appeal seems to be there. People who are seeking thrill, adventure, who are criminals to begin with, they are the ones who seem to be more attracted with ISIS. And it's so you can brand it this way. It's not for the knowledge of religion, but rather for the lack of it that they're falling prey to these.
See the tanks, you know, there's always the same footage, and it's the tanks with the black and white flag, and the people whose faces they're wrapped in a scarf so that you can't see their face. And it does look exciting. It looks like an action film. And my first reaction was, this isn't the news, this is some sort of feature film out of Hollywood. But you can understand how if I'm 18 years old and impressionable, that could look exciting. It could look, compared to my boring life at the mall, standing around waiting to see my friends, this could look like there is. One of the challenges, I think, for Western society, and I think this has always been a challenge, is how do you invest meaning into the lives of young people that competes with that kind of excitement? And that's part of our challenge. I don't know how we do it, but I think we better get smart quick.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the lone wolf, because what we're seeing with the incidents in Europe is that, in the one in Australia, all it takes is one or two people. I mean, we're not talking about the 11, you know, the 19 people who went into the buildings, I mean, the 9/11 situation. It does not have to be an organized cell. It could be one mentally ill individual who can really cause chaos and really cause disruption.
And that's another side of the problem. There are mentally ill people. There are people suffering from depression.
Yes.
Who knows what appeals to them? And they're the ones who need to seek treatment, to begin with, they're not seeking treatment.
Yeah.
They need to be identified and be helped. And these are especially if they're young in age, who are trying to run away from homes, or if they're living in conservative homes where there are too many controls, these are avenues which might seem to attract them.
What more could the media do to tell the positive story? I think of those 3 young people that were killed in North Carolina. I wish I had known more about them before they were a headline.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wish
Absolutely.
I had more positive stories about people in the community, of young people doing wonderful things that they were doing. I mean, they were really dedicated to trying to make the world a better place. And we didn't know enough about them then. Can the media be a force to tell more positive news in this?
I think absolutely. The media does need to have a very important role. Unfortunately, as you know, media builds its popularity based on sensation. So you keep repeating the good things and it doesn't seem to attract much attention, but you instill fear in people's lives, and that seems to captivate people's attention. And
Is there any estimate of the number of Muslims in the Lansing area? I mean, is that a census?
Is that a figure, you mean?
Yeah, is there a number?
during our annual festival prayers, about 5,000 people show up for that. In terms of our weekly mandatory congregation prayer, about 1,000 people show up.
Now, your community has done a lot to try to do an outreach to the broader community, to invite people in, to come to the Islamic Center, to understand that, look, we're not, we're happy to have you. We'd like to show you what it is that we do. Are there events coming up in the near future that we should know about at the center that...
We do have what we call as, the program is called Coexistence, Is It Possible? Beyond Coexistence, Is It Possible? This is a program that we partner with next door Lutheran Church, the Sharizade's synagogue on Coolidge Avenue, and the Red Cedar Neighborhood Association. Together we have been doing this program every once in a quarter. We try and discuss different topics that is of mutual interest. And this is usually an open invitation to all the people. And this is falling on March 27th, I believe.
March 27th. And that is, what day of the week?
Yeah.
Is that a Saturday?
It's a Saturday, yeah.
And would it be at your,
This one is happening at the University Lutheran Church.
at the University Lutheran Church?
We'll have a flyer on our website pretty soon so that I can be more accurate on the date and time.
When do you have your open house?
Again, we don't have a set time.
Okay.
The last one we did was in October of last year. It was very well received. A lot of people came and got some information. There was one person who came full of anger because that's what she's been seeing as Fox News all along. She came and she saw and she felt left as a different person.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's what it takes for one to come, meet, know each other, and appreciate each other's beliefs and even differences for that matter.
I had a great time. I went a few years ago. I took my video camera, and there are opportunities. Somebody was putting henna on people's hands with the beautiful drawings, and there was great food. And I mean, it was just a wonderful experience and a lot of opportunities to talk to people one-on-one. There were movies that were showing some of Islamic culture, artifacts. I mean, it's a really great experience. So I really would encourage people to have an opportunity to interact there at the mosque. One of the friendliest communities I've been in a long time. I want to thank Thasin Sardar for joining us this evening. This is and also for April Pooley. We will be returning next Monday night at 7 o'clock. You've been listening to Lansing Online News Radio with Bonnie and Bill. And this is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing. And we'll see you next Monday evening at 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you.